What is going on, guys? It is Blink here, back with a new guide. Now, in this guide, we'll be talking about a great way of getting the high ground and maintaining it. So guys, let's get this guide started. So, in this first example, I'll show you guys a super good way of just holding that high ground down. Me and this player kept building off, and you can see the moment I got a little bit of the high ground, I kept building myself straight up. I don't exactly know what my opponent is doing, but what I know is that I've got the high ground with a bunch of support under me. This is one of the best ways of setting up to take shots at your opponent. If I've just grabbed the high ground, I'll build straight up for a few stories because that allows me to peek over and start taking shots at my opponent. It avoids the issue of taking shots while your opponent's almost getting the high ground back. With this method of building up, you'll already be way above your opponent and you can pressure him without sacrificing the high ground. If you try to grab it back, you can simply repeat this same elevator buildup and he just won't be able to get it. He ended up staying lower, so as I said, slowly make your way down and pressure him. As I dropped, I noticed he tried building back up, although I was still above him and I never allowed it. So if you notice a player's double ramping up, a good way of stopping them from getting above you is by placing a bunch of floors to where they're heading. They won't notice it because they can't really see exactly where you're building when they're double ramping. The floor will stop them from building anymore and you can instantly edit your way right into them to take shots. I did miss my pump shot, so that didn't help the situation, although I ended up getting the elimination. This elevator method of building is great to utilize if you want that high ground pretty quickly with beefed up support. Building yourself straight up before your opponent even starts building will give you that advantage over them. As I built up early, one of the players tried building stairs towards me and I have a full-on headshot angle on him. The second player never really knew what to do and we were able to knock him. When you've built yourself a fort and your opponent's expecting a usual fight, they might get a little intimidated because in their head, they ran into a fort when they usually expect a fight with less materials. Now, you can notice I never really minded leaving extra walls exposed as I built because I had bounce traps. Had I not had bounce traps, I'd have to try filling in every wall as I did this, or be smart enough to drop down if it's getting shot down. And one thing to note, if it's getting shot down, the point of building it super layered is to give you time to shoot back at your opponents as they attempt to shoot it down. You might deal some solid damage as they're shooting and you'll be able to drop down for the finisher. So the second player ends up sitting somewhere underneath, and this is where you find your opponent. Drop yourself down and figure out where he's at. If you've dropped down to the ground, then make sure to be prepared to build a wall to block his first shot and then a ramp for the peek over. Anytime you've dropped down to the ground, that's usually the first thing that should come to your head. Building the wall plus a ramp for support to block and peek. Now, in this example, I'll be gearing my focus towards being careful when fighting. We are fighting for the high ground and this is where you have to be very careful the higher you go. Once I had a pretty solid angle on him, I tried dropping down on him to get the elimination, but he somehow held on. So I can actually hear him down below me and listen to what your opponent is doing. If you cannot hear him and nothing has happened in the past few seconds, then you want to make your way down much lower because once you get to high heights, your opponent can either pickaxe the bottom without you even hearing it, or he'll just shoot it down and you won't be able to get down quick enough since you're so high up. This opponent did shoot a bit of it down, but I was able to drop down to where I can hear him right under me. He ends up hearing me too and we build up for the high ground, although I jump right to him and we're kind of close together. So you want to either take shots or trap your opponent in. Try to avoid building off for that high ground because your opponent might phase through every single material you placed and it might make you a little nervous. Now, if you've got bounce traps, then staying as high as you want won't be an issue. Just make sure you're quick enough to deploy it to safely get down. If you're walking over your opponent's materials, then be prepared to place your own materials down. That way you can use a bounce trap to get yourself down. Well guys, that is it for this guide and hope I can help some people out. And a like and a sub will be greatly appreciated as it does help me out a lot. Anyways guys, thanks for watching and hope you have a great rest of your day and night, and I'll see you on the next one.